And also joining us today is Amani Al Khatahtbeh from MuslimGirl.com. It's gonna look like an interrogation now. Like, it's exciting.
Got mics. Hey guys, how is everyone? Cold. Jeez, stay warm as much as you can.
Cozy.
I know everybody came looking super fashionable though, so rarely warmth.
Yes. So let's jump right in. Why immigration? What brings you to the topic? What's so important about it?
I think that the way that we are centering the conversation around immigration right now is really bringing human lives' value down to documents, down to something like an arbitrary legal status. And we really have to look at it beyond that scope because really we're talking about human beings, right? We're talking about how this is impacting actual families. And I feel that the way that we're addressing these issues right now makes it very like us versus them. It makes it like there's this huge divide, and when we create that divide, it makes it way easier for us to dehumanize other people and not care about how policies like what we see taking place right now actually impacts them in their everyday lives.
And I really appreciated that you mentioned documentation because, I mean, we know that there's over 11 million undocumented immigrants in the U.S., and if it was easy to adjust your status, I'm sure people would have done it already.
Pretty sure nobody would want to be doing
like no
it.
one would just be like, let me hang out without any documentation.
Yeah.
What about you, Lauren?
I mean, she genuinely covered it so well, but I mean, as far as immigration goes, I agree with her that the conversation right now that the administration uses, the language that they use, like aliens and, illegals, like when you think about that like conceptually, like human beings are not aliens. Human beings are not illegal. We're all alive and we're all present on our planet Earth, which is just a little gaseous ball we're all floating on in space, So when you really think about what borders even are and what they were created for, it's just for imperialism and for the ability for people to keep conquering. And that's exactly what got people into a situation right now where we would even have immigrants coming over from different countries. It's because nobody flees their country because they want to. Most people are very proud of where they come from and love where they come from, and it kills them to have to leave their homes because it got to a point where they can't look at their kid in the face anymore and tell them that they can provide for them. And that's the reality of the situation that these people are facing. They are struggling to survive, which unfortunately in America, we're very comfortable. We don't understand what that's like. We don't understand what it's like to have to live in a situation where there's rubble all around you and your family members are being harmed in front of your face, and that's traumatic even to begin with psychologically. Don't even get me started on that. But then on top of that, coming and trying to start a life somewhere where you're promised freedom, because that's the basis of America in theory, to come here and to want to do that and then to be told, oh well, the color of your skin isn't applicable. No, that's not right.
And I can speak to that, especially when it comes to the Muslim ban, for example. We're talking about people who are fleeing the same terrorism that we're over here freaking out about, right? It's
which hasn't even hit us.
Yeah, exactly. And it's if you ask any person, if you ask any Syrian immigrant, would you go back to Syria if you could? They would in a heartbeat tell you yes, right? Nobody wants to leave their homes, leave behind everything that they know. And yet we kind of treat this conversation oh, we're doing them a favor. They want
all our benefits. I'm boy, we don't even get our benefits. How are illegals getting our benefits when we don't even get our benefits?
Exactly.
Yeah, or even just narrowing down the value of an immigrant to their labor and economic contributions.
I read that the other day. That's such a huge thing. So the value of a human being is only based off of what they can contribute to somebody else making money? That doesn't make any sense, because we all know that that's not what we're here for on this planet, right? Everybody knows that their purpose is way greater than how much money they can make. Does everyone know that? Yeah. All right, cool.
Or when we talk about immigrants, for example, and we try to, kind of make people sympathize with immigrants more by saying things like, oh, there are immigrants that are doctors, there are immigrants that are and Steve Jobs is the son of an immigrant and stuff like that. But it's Okay, what about the immigrants that are taxi drivers? Immigrants that are doing the work that nobody else wants to do. Like, they're also
building the homes.
that are just as integral to our society as anybody else.
Yeah, and we're seeing that a lot recently too, because everyone is struggling to be accepted, you know, quote unquote, and to assimilate and to be welcome. That we just say, oh, but you know, I did this great thing, or you know, I'm a great student, I went to college. These are great things, but then it narrows down the conversation to like a specific story. And I wanted to ask you, Lauren, because I know that you openly talk about being the granddaughter and daughter of immigrants, and I wanted to ask you, why is it important for you to bring that up?
Well, I mean, I know that my family's here, and I'm able to be sitting where I am right now, and even in the position I am, because of the fact that they came over here. If not, I would have been born in Cuba, and that would have been interesting, to say the least, at this point, you know? But my family got lucky because, well, JFK kind of screwed us over, and he had to put a little Band-Aid on that. So we got the wet foot, dry foot policy, which allowed us to come in legally, immediately. Like the second we touched, this is Cubans, I'm speaking about Cubans. The second we touched dry land, we're allowed to be here. That's automatically we're citizens. So that is a privilege all up in itself that I don't even think my family understands. You know what I'm saying? Like when I really think about it, when I think about the opportunity that was granted to us in that sort of situation, because you have people from Syria, like you just mentioned, who, I mean, they are living in actual destruction. Like their whole entire cities are falling down around them, and I can't even imagine the pain that they've been through. And they were like #1 on that list of people who cannot come here, and definitely do not have the opportunity to come here. And I think that's an atrocity, because the only reason they're in the situation they are in is because of our wars. You know what I'm saying? About the powers that be going around and messing everything up because they want more money, and then these people's homes and their water supply and their food and their children are dying, and 50% of the immigrants are children. So how are you telling me that all these kids are going to come and terrorize us? Like, no, they don't have parents most of the time. They lost everything that they held dear to themselves. So I know the position that I would be in if I hadn't been granted the opportunity, or if my family hadn't been granted the opportunity to come here. So I feel like mentioning that is important, because it draws attention to, like, immigrants are everyone. We're all immigrants. We all have a story that got us to where we are, especially in America. Nobody came from America except the Native Americans, and we've completely destroyed them. So, you know, like, where are we going here? What are we trying to do, really?
Yeah, and I really like that you mentioned the way Cuban immigrants have a different path to citizenship, or had a different path to citizenship, right? And I wanted to ask you, Amani, because of MuslimGirl.com, why was it so important to you to represent a variation of different stories and women's stories? Because I know oftentimes the immigration conversation is limited to like non-Muslim, Latin American immigrants, and I just wanted to hear from you about why that's important.
I think that the way the media covers these topics has a tremendous impact on public opinion, on the policies that we support as an American people, on the Islamophobia that's running rampant right now. At MuslimGirl.com, you know, the reason why we created this platform is because we wanted to talk back. We wanted these conversations happening about Muslim women to be discussed and talked about by a Muslim woman, to be led by a Muslim woman. And really, you know, like for me personally, I'm the daughter of a refugee and an immigrant. And my grandmother was a refugee from Palestine. She escaped a conflict that if she didn't have the opportunity to leave, like I wouldn't be here today doing the work that I do. But yet we need to invest in correcting media misrepresentation because, again, you know, it really contributes to our dehumanization of people, right? Like, for example, when it comes to Muslims, we talk about the Muslim people like they're all one big homogenous group. Like they're just like one huge monolith. They're like one entity. And yet there are 1.8 billion Muslims in the entire world, like 1.8 billion. To put that into perspective, the global Christian population is 2.2 billion, right? So like imagine trying to draw a generalization about all Christians in the world. That's just as ridiculous as it is to try to draw a generalization about Muslims in the world, to say that all Muslims are one thing or another. Absolutely. And the way that we change that is if we take control of the narratives. Like if we show that we do come from every walk of life on the planet, we have human stories, shared universal experiences that bond us, bring us together, remind us of our shared humanity. And that's really why MuslimGirl.com exists. It's to bring those voices to the forefront, to center the voices that are being impacted. And especially when it comes to policies that are happening right now, like with the Muslim ban, of course we need to talk about how they're actually impacting our community, because so many polls have come out over the past year that the majority of Americans have never had a Muslim friend before. Like, can you imagine that? By the way, none of you guys account in that, because I'm your Muslim friend now, okay? All of you have a Muslim friend. But when you think about that, right, the majority of Americans have never had a Muslim friend before, and yet, or don't think that they have one, and yet we just elected a president largely based off of his policies about the Muslim community. So it's like we don't even understand this community. We don't understand how this is going to impact them, and yet we're just like blatantly, like speaking on their behalf and making these decisions.
And acting out of fear.
Acting out of fear.
Because that's the main thing about this whole administration, is this fear mongering of just, you should be scared because you're in danger because of these people, and that blame that happens. That they did this. I mean, this is history repeating itself, my friends. This is textbook. If you pick up any history book, this language and the way that they demonize and kind of put everyone, or all of these particular kind of people into categories, that's the way that, fascism is carried out, and things like that are able to happen. When we think back about the Holocaust, we're like, oh my God, that was atrocious. Like, that'll never happen again. But those kind of things can happen again if we all blind ourselves to the signs of what is happening. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what is happening right now, in the way that we communicate about each other, in the way that we are scared of each other, in the way that we don't even want to have an open dialogue or communication about it, because we're being told by all these people who are, I'm going to say it again, they're just taking your money. So they're all telling you what's going on and what you should do to keep yourself protected, because they know that you want to keep yourself protected. They know that you value your life, and that you value your children, and you value your parents, and you value your families, and they prey off of that and tell you that that enemy is the one harming you when they're the enemy harming you.
Yeah, no, I'm so glad you brought that up, because in moments like these, like when I was learning about the Holocaust when I was in middle school, I remember just like the most blatant question that was in my head was, how did they allow this to happen? How did this take place? And yet, in moments like these, we can clearly see how something like that happened. Like we can clearly see how something like that can unfold right before our eyes, and people just remain completely silent about it, or they don't recognize that it's happening. Or they don't want to. They want to remain like blind to it. Or when we learn about the civil rights movement, like in high school, we're learning about all those badass protests, all the marches, and we're like, oh, if I was alive back then, I would totally be a part of that. Or I wonder what I would have done. Well, like, we're in that moment right now, and what you're doing right now is what you would have done back then. So think about that. Like, are you acting upon what you believe in? Are you actualizing the person that you believe you are, that you want to be? Because this is the moment that calls for it. Like, this is that moment in history that future generations are going to look back on, that are going to be studying in high school classes, and they're going to probably be asking that question. We don't want them to ask the question, how did they let it happen? We want them to look back and be like, yo, the people won.
Yeah, and I think along with the scapegoating and the Holocaust, and we see a lot of people struggling with income inequality and trying to find work and all these things, and it's really easy to blame immigrants, right? And to say immigrants are at fault. You
can only blame immigrants if you're not watching the policies being made right now. If you're unaware and you choose to not become aware because, oh, it's so overwhelming, like, oh my God, they're doing something every day, like, this is so intense, like, I can't believe this is happening, like, you kind of check out, that's when things start happening.
I mean, that's the whole
That's
point.
Why they do it. That's why they bombard you real quickly with all of these atrocious things that you're like, oh my God, if I think about this, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like, I can't do this. And that's the whole point. It's to distract you and to keep you in a state of fear and in a state of, oh, I can't control anything. This is what's happening. This is the way it goes. But we control everything, because they run off of what? Our money. Good job. You're learning. Thanks, Courtney. But yeah, everything is literally run off of our dollar bills. The consumer is who propels society. So if we all are more concerned about buying a hat and, going to the movies or whatever it is that you're going to do, which I'm not saying you don't do those things, because those things are helpful for peace of mind. However, if you can contribute your money to a cause, or like a cause that helps people out, or if you can contribute your money, like instead of getting a coffee, you go and you donate $5 to here. You know what I'm saying? Like those little changes and where your money goes make a huge impact on what happens up there.
Yeah, I mean, look at what happened with the Uber CEO, right?
I divested.
Yeah.
I deleted that Uber app so quick.
The power of the people. Like everyone deleted their accounts. Yeah, and he ended up stepping down from Trump's council. Like that was us. That was a victory right there. And that just is a testament to our power.
Yeah. And we also saw thousands of people protest in the airports to get people out of detention because of the Muslim ban. We saw even recently a couple of undocumented immigrants that were released from detention because people like us spoke up and did something about it. And I wanted to ask, what is the role of media then in this? What are some tips on covering this issue? Because we know that we need to get the voice out there, right? Like this is great, and then we have to push people, right, to understand and to realize, and what is the role of media in all this?
My advice that I always tell people is if you're trying to learn about what's happening, if you're trying to learn about another culture, another people, another community, then use sources that were created by that people, that community, that culture that you're trying to learn about, right? Like there's no reason for us to try to, learn about what's taking place through the lens of someone that doesn't even affect, that are trying to speak on our behalf, that are trying to reshape that narrative. That's really how you take that space away from someone else. But the way that you empower someone, the way that you give them space and you elevate their narrative is if you select them over the other sources, right? Like MuslimGirl.com, for example. If you come to MuslimGirl.com sources to learn about how these issues are affecting Muslims, that's much more viable than going elsewhere and reading about it from someone that's a non-Muslim, possibly not even a non-woman too, We have a great relationship with Latina magazine, for example, if you want to learn about how these issues affect Latino women. We have a great relationship with Blavity if you want to learn about how race issues today are affecting millennial Black people. Go to the source, go to the communities, build those bridges, and that's really how we can maintain that authenticity. And then the way that you can easily elevate those voices from literally wherever you are is if you see it on your newsfeed, hit share, spread it around. I don't believe in this whole thing about armchair activism or social media politics or whatever. It's no, that's the whole point of social media. You don't know who you're gonna affect.
Spread it.
Yeah, spread it. If every person has their own following, their own friends and stuff like that, then things can become exponential in the way that you can affect change. And really, yeah, that's really how we share that influence and we share that responsibility.
Yeah, and as far as the media goes, I think it's about the conversation and for me, headlines are what mess me up a lot because I feel like they're very sensationalized and they're taken to a place that the article isn't even about 90% of the time. So I feel like y'all do such a good job of doing that, just of making sure that you're speaking to the audience and you're trying to inform people. I feel like there's so much right now clouding the media space that people don't even know where to draw their attention to because they're trying to hit you with so much stuff that's going to confuse you. That's the only thing they can do right now, you know what I mean? Because in this era of total transparency, which we've never seen in the history of humankind, when it comes down to something like this happening, we've never had the internet and we've never had we can talk. I can talk to somebody in Kenya right now. That's never been a possibility in the human race before. So the fact that we can connect and the fact that we can see each other all around the world, no matter what time it is, no matter what day it is, we're connected. That is so special. This is such an intensely special era of humanity that we can really come in and harness together. And if we do that, we can genuinely overcome this power. And if we really strategically and together, I can't stress that together enough, that is we can do it. We really can, I promise.
We honestly have no excuse at that point. Literally everything that's out there we're connected to.
We can see everything that's happening. Every time he poops, we know about it. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, excuse me to say that, but when he does anything, we know about it. That's not the way things happened before. You used to have television screens that would tell you what was happening and that they could filter through, and newspapers that they could filter the information through. That's why propaganda was able to take such a hold in people before, because they didn't have any other sort of information flowing to them. But we have access. Your phone that you're holding up right now to film me, that piece of technology is incredible if you use it for the right reason. And if you actually actively look for the right things on it. Like, it's scary how powerful it is. So just know that and be conscious of that. And instead of spending all your time on Instagram one day, try to look for articles and try to educate yourself and become more aware. Read books about different cultures so you can understand as much as you possibly can before you place a judgment into the universe.
Or spend all day on Instagram, but use those woke ass hashtags that are on there, right?
Right. She's right. She's
like,
super right.
No, I think that's what's so cool about it, because these platforms, like hashtags, really, they melt away the borders. They melt away, like, I really think that's how Muslim women have risen to prominence over the past few years. It's like you go on Instagram and you see your like veiled beauty gurus putting on makeup alongside anyone else, and really like social media normalizes this stuff. Like social media is democratizing media in general and placing that power back in our hands. And that's what gives voices like ours, like voices like MuslimGirl.com, a fighting chance against like corporate news and like mainstream media that have billions of dollars behind them. But we have the power of the people.
Yeah, and I know in terms of organizing, we've used social media to raise awareness about what's happening, to get petitions out there, because if not, it's really easy to lose an undocumented immigrant in detention center, or forget that somebody was deported because the media, you know, will like go on to the next story and the next story.
Or make up numbers. They love to make up statistics. I'm like, you're wrong. This is not.
For sure.
What's this garbage?
And I wanted to hear from you, Lauren, about what is the role in celebrities in all this? I think oftentimes people think, oh, celebrities don't care about this issue. They have nothing to say about this. Are you ever worried that you're going to lose fans, or what does that look like?
I mean, I personally don't think about that at all. Like, if you are upset by me fighting for human rights, I don't want you to be my fan anyway. That's my opinion, personally. But I also don't, like, I don't ever want to put out there that people should be doing something, you know what I mean? Because like everyone's their own person, and everyone has their own strategy of how they're gonna become what they want to become in their lives. Because most of us think very selfishly, and we think here, and I'm here, and this is where I gotta go, and this is how I'm gonna be happy, and this is where I'm gonna be, and how I'm gonna make money. So you can't really ask somebody to compromise the things that make them feel safe in what they're doing, you know? But for me, if you have a voice and you're gifted with the opportunity to speak, like I'm in front of so many people right now, you know what I mean? And the fact that I even have the opportunity to do that, I feel in my heart that it's my responsibility to speak on these things, because I am so passionate about them. And I feel we should all be passionate about them. Like, it kills me, honestly, that we live in a world right now, or we've always lived in a world where we have to question each other's humanity, where we have to, when we look at each other, we can't just be like, oh, that's a person, you know? Like, they don't look like me exactly, but they've got a heart, they've got a brain, got hands, eyes, and like the concept of like the same exact genetics that make your eyes whatever color they are is the same exact genetics that make your skin whatever color they are. Nothing defines a human being except for their heart and their mind and their words. That's it, and their actions, excuse me. Because that's what makes you a person. That's what makes you a human being. And that, if everyone understood that concept, we wouldn't have this crazy hatred. We wouldn't have borders. We wouldn't have to have a conversation about why immigrants are real people or why their struggle is important. We wouldn't have to do that, because we would immediately associate their pain with our own, because we would feel it too if we were in their position. And that for me is something that's so important. And if I have the time, to be able to speak on that and talk about that to people who otherwise probably wouldn't even think about it, because you know they don't care, or they have, again, they're in their me mode where I gotta be on, I have to be doing well in school, I have to make sure my parents are happy, I have to do, like, people don't think about, oh, like the greater issues of life affect me. And that's where we have to kind of come together and be like, okay, they do though, because they're affecting my brother or my sister. Because that's what we all are.
And I wanted to hear from you, Amani, about, since the election, how have people received MuslimGirl.com and you and your activism? Have you seen a difference in the way that people comment or tweet at you, or do people email you different things since they did before?
Yeah, I mean, the trolling is never ending. That's just like a truth of the matter. But I think that this is the first time in my life that I've seen this much support for Muslims, right? Like 9/11 happened when I was a child. I was in elementary school, and it was really rough growing up through that, growing up through the height of Islamophobia. And my biggest fear in all of this has always been the kids, like another generation of Muslim children growing up enduring what I had to go through that literally almost destroyed me growing up. But, you know, like a few weeks back, there was this huge rally in New York City. It was called I'm a Muslim Too. And I was invited to speak there. It was hosted by Russell Simmons. And when I like stood up at the podium, I literally, like as far as my eyes could see, there were crowds and crowds of people like holding up signs, you know, like Jews stand with Muslims, Christians stand with Muslims, we're all Muslim, and things like that. And I remember just being overwhelmed because I have never seen this much support for us before in my entire life. And really, you know, it's something that I feel so much gratitude for. And to me, it signifies that things are different now. Like maybe actually
this generation, though.
Yeah, like maybe this next generation of Muslim children actually won't have to grow up enduring what I had to go through, because maybe things are different now. You know, like maybe this is signifying a change in the tide, a change in this moment. In humanity, yeah, and really, I think that's what we have to do moving forward. I think that our emancipation is going to lie in all of us standing up with each other and for each other. And I really don't think that we can let, you know, marginalized communities of color, you know, people like us that are affected by these policies to be the ones to do all the reaffirmation, all the educating people about like why they should care. You know, like that's something that we need to depend on our allies for. That should be a shared responsibility. And I think that that's one easy way that anyone can really take part in like reshaping this moment in history. It's by, you know, like standing up for us. This is what that moment calls for.
And that happens in a lot of different areas. Like that happens every day.
A lot of different ways.
Every single day, most of us are confronted with a situation where somebody's acting out towards someone because of something that they don't like about them. That happens to me all the time. Not me, but like around me. And I like call it out. Talk about it. Ask that person why they feel that way. Or have a discussion about it. Everyone's so scared to talk to each other and to check each other because they're like, oh, I'm going to be annoying. Or they're going to think that I'm like, they're not going to want to talk to me anymore because I'm like too much. Like, be too much. Be way too much. And tell your friends to be too much, because the more that we are too much and we're defending each other and we're not accepting that kind of speech and we're not accepting that kind of hatred around us, that's the way we make the difference. Is every single day in our small little communities of life that we all actually live in, you know what I mean? Because we don't all live in the grand scheme of the world every day, you know? That's not reality for us. You go to school, you go to work, you know, you're in your just little bubble space. So when you see things that don't fit with your morals and don't fit with like humanity morals, talk about it, call it out, like just do it. Because those little things, that person that you're calling out, even if they act super mad at you in that moment, they're gonna think about it later. They're gonna think about, damn, why did she make me feel like crap about that? Like, what?
No,
am I wrong?
And also, like,
do otherwise.
Standing up for other people also doesn't always look like interjecting when someone's getting attacked on the bus, right? Like sometimes standing up for us looks like, you know, confronting your racist grandfather at the dinner table. Okay, like that's where it starts. Like I think that for a lot of us, we have to look towards our immediate social circles because that's where a lot of these things, like even as small as a microaggression, right? Even as small as like your friend using the N-word or something, like these things ripple outwards. And if you correct them within your own bubble first, it really does create an impact. Like that's where change starts. And no one should ever think that those little moments are inconsequential. Like they actually have a tremendous impact. They actually make a difference. And we should all start there, because what's the point of going to a rally with like thousands of people there if like those thousands of people aren't taking care of like their own people first, their own communities? And
everybody does that, that change is already there.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, like one of the first book readings that I did for my book Muslim Girl Coming of Age was here in a southern state. It was in a red state, and it was predominantly white non-Muslim people that came out to it, which was really great to me. Like it was really a beautiful surprise. And during the Q&A session, there was one non-Muslim white woman in the audience, and instead of asking me a question, she used the opportunity to address everyone else in the audience. And she turned to them and said, to my fellow white people in here, I just want to let you know that it has been, you know, like documented that people respond better when they're called out by someone of the same like social status or higher than them, right? And like what she meant was, you know, you got to check your own people. Like a white person's going to respond better if they're called out by another white person than if a black person were to do it, right? So it's like that's where the change starts. Like that's a shared responsibility that we all got to take on, because like we're not the ones that elected Trump, you know, like we shouldn't be the ones paying the price. We shouldn't be the ones like responding to this. So like facts.
Yeah, I mean, I can't even vote, so it's not my fault. But I wanted to ask both of y'all, how has your activism been received? How do you use art in your activism? Was there ever a moment that you were like, I have to do something about this? Or what was that like?
I think, was there a moment? I mean, I've always been so like aware and passionate about always been too much. But yeah, like just aware of the world and the way things work, because I get the nuances. I love history and I've studied it extensively, so I kind of like, I can pick up human behavior and the way things are going, you know what I mean? So I've always been very passionate about that. I think when the reality of the fact that a man like Trump could even have a platform to campaign came up, and that people validated his hatred, and the people resonated with his hatred even at this time, because I thought, oh wow, we've moved on, you know what I mean? Like, not we've moved on, I knew there are obviously things that are still going on and that are wrong in socially the way we deal with each other, but I thought from a political perspective, we moved on. We're not going to go back to that kind of mentality, because we've very thoroughly educated ourselves about what that is and what happens when that happens. So when I saw that that wasn't true, and that people were really like clinging on to almost every word he said, even though he cannot articulate a single thing, I was like, what is going on? Like, where is everybody's head at? Like, why is this something that's happening? So because of that and the passion that drove me in that, I just post everything I can on social. I don't know if y'all follow me, but I post, and I don't care if you're mad about it. I don't care if it's too much for you.
You'll follow her after this.
Like, I'm gonna post about it because I know that I have an audience of impressionable young women mostly, and I want to raise like the most badass women ever through what I do. You know what I mean? Like, I want the women who look up to me to be like, wow, I want to be like that. I want to know about that. I want to talk about that, and I want to fix that. That's what I think. Whenever I post something, I'm like, okay, take it. Like, take it, engulf it, understand this, and do something. Because I know they want to. I know you want to do something, especially if you see that someone that you admire is passionate about it. You know what I'm saying? That I just kind of... Pop culture has such an intense influence on humanity. Like, we have so much influence. It's crazy the amount of influence that, like, pop stars and the Kardashians and the rappers and, like, all of these people, their music are what drives our, like, social norms. We say the things that they say, we do the things that they do, we buy whatever they tell us to. So I was like, all right, let me give them education. let me just pop a few facts on them. Let them internalize that, you know? Yeah.
I think that I had a moment last year, December 2015. That was when it was December 5th, I believe, of 2016. Yeah, 2015. And I remember this date because that's when Donald Trump first started making his comments about banning all Muslim immigration. That was when, yet again, Muslim women felt afraid to step out of their homes because of how tense things had gotten for us. Many of us, we started compromising the way that we wrap our scarves, those of us that are veiled, before we walk out of our homes, so that we can be more religiously ambiguous and conceal the fact that we're Muslims. Even until now, every day I learn about a new Muslim woman that has decided to take her headscarf off for fear of being attacked in public for it. But a year ago, when he first started making those comments, for the first time since MuslimGirl.com's inception, which I created when I was a teenager, for the first time, we felt compelled to publish a crisis safety manual for Muslim women, just to survive, just to be a Muslim woman in America today. And this resource was filled with like safety tips, stuff like don't leave your home without a fully charged phone in case you need to record something going down if someone attacks you. Make sure you have these numbers in your phone in case you need to report a hate crime. Make sure you're connected with these organizations. Make sure you have these apps. And it's just like, why is it that any American, and we're talking like, this isn't even Muslim immigrants, Muslim refugees, people who shouldn't feel this way anyway, who are still human beings, but we're also talking about Muslim Americans that were born and raised here, like myself. Like, this is literally the only country I've ever known. Like, this is my home. Why should we feel afraid to step out onto the street in our own hometowns? No American should feel that way. No human being should ever feel that way.
Especially if we're claiming freedom.
Especially, yeah, if we are so proud of ourselves, you know, like this past anniversary of 9/11, a Muslim woman in Manhattan, in New York City, was set on fire in the street. We're not talking about Iran or Saudi Arabia or what the government or like what the media will have you believe. We're talking about here at home in our streets in the great United States of America. A Muslim woman was set on fire for being a Muslim, right? So it's like, right after that, when we were forced to publish something like that, and there came a day in the preceding weeks that I opened up our homepage, and I saw that it was just like headline after headline on our blog that's like Trump, 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 Trump. Like his face was all over our website. And I had to pause for a second and talk to my editorial team, and I was like, listen, you guys, like, this isn't right. Even in our own space, in our own home right here on MuslimGirl.com, it's saturated with talking about this man and his ridiculous statements. Like, this should be about us. Like, let's make this about us. Again, like, these are the conversations we need to be having. If anything, this should be our escape from all this bullshit. And so we decided to suspend our coverage of Trump for a good amount of time. We're like, we're not even gonna talk about him anymore. Like, let's go back to the basics and let's have the conversations we need to be having. I think for me, like, one of those moments where I realized, like, activism of a different form is really needed, and especially for millennials to be, you know, perpetuating that activism in social media and digital spaces, because, you know, like I said, having grown up post 9/11, having grown up under the assault of Islamophobia, I watched the way that the Muslim community responded, like the older leaders now, the people that came before us. And really, all of that was just, it was really just drowned in this messaging of, we're not all terrorists. We promise. Please like us. We're human beings too. We're just like you. You know, it really just like cornered us in this position of defensiveness. And it's not right, because look, like, we just poured 15 years of resources, of energy, of time into trying to convince the American public that we are human beings too. And all it took was one campaign for all of that to go out the window and for people to go right back to square one about hating Muslims and dehumanizing us, and now even banning us from entering the country.
With fake statistics.
With fake statistics, with like whatnot, with alternative facts, right? Like,
what the?
So
alternative facts, lies.
Yeah,
just lies. Just lies.
And
alternative facts don't exist.
I think that that's why it's really important for us to be having these conversations in our own voices, right? Because this whole like defensive act, this whole like pandering to the public and trying to convince them otherwise, it doesn't work. You know, for us, the light bulb was, this is about us. This is about our identity. The opportunity for us to cultivate our own identities for ourselves was robbed of us as children. So now let's have that conversation. Like us, we were the Muslim girls that were silenced when the Iraq war was happening, when the Afghanistan war was happening, when the war on terror started. We were the ones that were silenced, so now let's grow up into the women that talk back. Let's have those conversations now.
Yeah. I really appreciated that you brought up the crisis report that you were working on to highlight some of the things that people can do. And I don't think people realize like how much fear there is. I know over in New York, the organizing that we do has shifted into how do we protect ourselves, how do we defend ourselves, having to create like family plans in case someone in your family is detained or deported. Like, that is not life. That is not how you should be living, where you can't even go to school or go to work because you think that at any moment someone is going to pick you up off the street.
It's also not productive. Like, when you think about why the administration is upset to begin with, quote unquote, because of these like immigrants who are causing all this havoc and doing all these awful things, it's like they're not doing those things. They're trying to make livings for their families. They're working jobs that none of us would want. None of us would take. None of us would take for that salary, period. We wouldn't even do it. No health benefits, no nothing, just so that they can put food on the table for their kids. Like, when you think of that, and that being their mentality, that being like a mother who's been here for 20 years undocumented, who had her kids here so that they could have an opportunity, having to live in fear that somebody's gonna follow her kid home and take her away from them and just ship them off to wherever they came from initially 20 years ago. Can you imagine that? Somebody just picking you up and being like, you don't belong here, even though this has been your home for 20 years, and you're going back to where you came from. And your kids, you'll never see them again. How would you feel? You would feel lost. You would feel scared. You would feel like this gut-wrenching need to be there for your kids, and you can't because some guy in a uniform followed your kid home.
Lauren, that's literally why we need to tell these stories. If we're talking about why media is important, these are the stories that need to be told, because people just cannot make that connect, that what we're talking about, this rhetoric that's taking place on a national scale, it trickles down and it impacts our everyday lives, and stories like that, and that's why it's so important for us to get those stories out there, to elevate those narratives, because that's how we can remind ourselves that, these are human beings. This is how it's impacting them.
Yeah, and I really appreciated that Teen Vogue ran pieces on the point of view of the young girls that were the victims of raids, that had, this 13-year-old girl literally filmed her dad being arrested when he was dropping her off at school. And these are young girls, right? Little girls that are now forced to organize, to survive, to defend their families, and now have to become the head of households for their own siblings, that need to step into these roles that were not supposed to be theirs. And I wanted to ask you, Amani, I know that you spoke about before about seeing your dad face Islamophobia and being there and being young and just being in these spaces. What do you tell young girls that are now forced to be that person and to be strong for everybody else and to organize to defend their families?
It's really hard. It's really hard. Because I really don't know. I don't know what could have been said to me at that age to make me feel any better. I witnessed my family become victimized by Islamophobia right before my eyes. People literally humiliate my parents right in front of me when I was a kid. That's something that no child should have to, we don't talk about how it impacts children, to have to go through that. How does it impact their mental health? How does it impact their self-esteem, their feeling of self-worth, and especially in relation to their society, the people around them, the inferiority that places, that they are less than. They are not worthy like everyone else. They don't have the same type of value. It really messes you up, And I don't know what could have been said to me at that age. If anything, if I had the opportunity to talk to the younger me and say something to her, I would just tell her that everything's gonna be okay. Stay strong, and this moment will pass and it will get better. People, it's impossible for us to allow this to continue the way that it is. People are going to have to wake up to it. And the whole point is that we don't want them to wake up to it too late, So it's really important for all of us to make sure that not any more children have to go through that. No one should have to endure that. That's really heartbreaking. I didn't hear about that. About a young girl, videotaping her father getting arrested and dropping her off at school. That is devastating.
Yeah.
That's
I don't
trauma.
know if anyone can, whenever you hear these stories, I want you guys to not think of it as if it's someone else. I want you to picture yourself as the person going through these things. I want you to literally put yourself into their shoes, because that's the only way that we're ever going to get to a place where we want to make a difference. Because it's way easier to just be like, oh, that would never happen, because you won't experience it. I mean, I know I will never experience it. I'm very privileged, you know what I mean? And I know that I'm never going to have somebody grab my dad and try to arrest him in front of my face because he's the wrong color or from the wrong country. I will never have to deal with that. And that, for me, just because I don't have to deal with it doesn't mean that it's not real for so many people living in this world, and especially in this country. This country is, the way that we deal with racism and the way that we deal with each other is so, unforgiving and so dismissive. We all have been raised with this one-track mind of I'm the most important and my future is the most important and I need to be successful, because that's the American dream, is to be successful and to have money. But that's not what makes us humans, and that's not what gives us our humanity, and that's not what's going to save us in the end, ever. Money's a great tool to get to a place, for example, I'm working my butt off right now so that I can get stacking up so that I can get into that White House and change stuff. But only because I've noticed that the way that all of these people are in the cabinet right now is because of their money and their pockets. And that's ridiculous. We have to come back to a place where humanity is what rules us. And Our love for each other is what rules us, and our understanding of the fact that we are human beings. Like, if an alien were to come out of the sky right now, would y'all literally be like, oh my God, you're different than me? No, you'd be like, that thing's different than me. Or that person, whatever came, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, we would unite because we're all alike and we're all the same. These divisions are created for us to keep each other in fear so that we don't ever stand up to this power. And we got to. Like, we gotta, like, we just gotta be like, oh my God, that is so fake. Like, that's such a delusion. Like, I need to wake up from that. Let me wake everybody else up around me because I love them. You know?
Yeah, and I think when it comes to cultures, like even walking around, there's so many different foods. You can get food from Mexico. You
love that.
Food trucks
right
on every corner.
Yeah. But what always makes me laugh is like, you know, you like our culture, the music, the food. We got cute hair and skin. But then when it comes to the people, oh, but we don't want you here. We just want the nice parts of your culture and of your country, but not you as a person.
You're taking all of our benefits. That's my favorite line. I'm like, what are you talking about? What benefits? Where are the benefits? How are they benefiting here? Right. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and what does, like, this work is so tiring, and you get so, like, we're like about this topic, and I wanted to ask both of you, what does healing and community care look like for y'all? What do you do for fun? Read the news.
I'm constantly on Twitter like, oh my God.
I have no hobbies.
Genuinely, like, what do I do for fun?
Yeah, it's like sisterhood like this, you know? It's like, it's coming
talk
together.
about
like,
how shitty everything
I
is.
love talking. Like, I love coming, like, together with people and having real conversations because I feel like they're so rare. I come across a lot of people who are very frivolous and very pretentious and don't want to really talk about anything that's of substance or of what's going on in the world, and that immediately, like, turns me off because there's so much going on. How can you be talking about, like, you know, clothes and cars and stuff that doesn't, like, material things don't matter. They don't. They just don't. Like, they can break. They can come, like, they come in and out of your life. You'll always have money or you won't have money. There's no in between of that. There's always that fluctuation, you know? And if you live your life by that fluctuation of whether, and your worth, and you base your worth and other people's worth off of their economic value, like, you're missing the whole point of life. The entire point. Like, we are such amazing ethereal beings. Like, we have so much power in us to, like, love and to create. Like, look at the world we've created for ourselves. Like, that's all our brains and our hands working and our, like, souls working together to make our world better, you know? So if we take all of that energy and shift it from, like, this, oh, I want to be better for myself and on this one track, and we shift that to, let's make everyone's life better. Let's all just be happy and, like, cool with that, you know? Like, we don't need this competition of, oh, I need more money, I need more money, I need more money. And then you end up being a billionaire, like, with so much money in your bank account. And then there's people, like, so many more people struggling day to day for a check to be able to survive. Like, that's unnecessary imbalance of power that's, I said unnecessary. It's unnecessary. Sorry.
No hobbies, Amani?
I love it. That was where my hobbies answer went.
For real, no, like, MuslimGirl.com is my life. I have, like, life outside of it. It's literally fact. But anyway, no, but I think that self-care is really important. Like, self-care is so crucial because, you know, you can't put your 100% out there if you're not at 100% yourself, right? Like, when you get on a plane, they always say, put the gas mask on yourself first before you try to help somebody else. And that's the same way that self-care works. You know, like, you have to make sure that you are good. And especially when you're working in spaces like these, especially when you care, right? When you are woke, like, it gets exhausting. It gets exhausting because you don't want to ignore these headlines, right? Like, you don't want to check out. You want to be tapped in. You want to know what's going on and stuff like that. And I think that it's really important for us to, you know, treat ourselves with kindness, with gentleness. For me personally, like, I find my refuge with my friends. I'm still, like, my inner circle is still, like, my best friends from college. They're the people that I go to that know me, that have been known me. And, you know, like, having those conversations, yeah, like, connecting and bonding with people. And for me, like, I can never really get too checked out of something. I can never really like pivot myself out of it when I think about, the lives that this kind of work touches, like the things that people are going through. When I meet little girls that tell me that they're fans of Muslim Girl or that their lives have changed because of it, it's just like that reinvigorates me. Like that's my lifeblood, like that's the reason why I do what I do. And just surrounding myself by powerful, inspirational women like yourselves, like always, I think that that's like key, It really does come down to it, and making sure that you're just doing what you got to do to take care of yourself and put yourself first, whether that means, like staying at home on a Saturday night and Netflixing and chilling, or like going out, like whatever, but like you got to just like, blow that steam out elsewhere, like you have to just like keep your head cool, you have to like stay intact or whatever, because you also don't want to get desensitized, right? Like you also don't want to, like if you get burnt out, that's so dangerous. Like you don't know, like you want to know the warning signs before you reach that level, because if you get burnt out, like there's no telling how long it'll take for you to get back into it and become your normal self again, or if that's even going to happen. Like it's really like preventative measures, and the way that you do that is by making sure that you're just like taking care of yourself on a day-to-day basis.
And also, when you take care of yourself and you recognize your own power and you accept that and you love that, that's when you're really able to emanate that kind of love for everyone around you. Because until you are not insecure with yourself and until you realize how strong you are, because each one of us has an incredible power, like every single person here, every one of them. Like it doesn't matter where you came from, what happened to you, you all have the potential to reach a place where you can love yourself and accept yourself and be yourself. And when that happens, it's an immediate switch on the way that you view the world. Because when you love yourself, you can't stand to watch somebody else hate themselves. Or you can't stand somebody to hate on someone else. Because all of that hatred stems from fear and insecurity. It's never anything else. It's about what you're taught and about how you implement what you're taught. And that can change. That can all change because we're ever-changing beings. I don't care if you're 60 years old, you can change. It's possible. So yeah, remember that.
Thank you. And so before we start moving into the next panel, I wanted to ask both of you, what are some things that people can take away from this conversation and do to support immigrant justice and the immigrants in their lives and around them?
I don't know. Just be vigilant and take care of the people you love. And even if you don't know the person, extend your love to them. Because always giving love first is going to help you with your karmatic life. It's always going to help you and how you feel inside with yourself. Like when I don't know if you guys have ever been in like a bad mood or something, and like you're a little mean to somebody, and then you really think about it a lot later, and you're like, wow, oh my God, why did I do that? You know what I mean? Like I shouldn't have projected the way I was feeling. Like those little moments, they really make a difference in other people's lives. When I feel someone just be kind to me for no reason, like that touches me. That makes me feel like, okay, I can have a good day, you know what I mean? Like, it's okay, like, I'm good. Like, this person was so kind and sweet. Like, I can emanate that same energy. So just be conscious of that and be vigilant and watch out for each other. That's, I think, so important. Like, watching out. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Right now, I think that we're hearing a lot of stuff like, people want to put on safety pins to designate themselves as allies, right? People are wanting to put on headscarves in solidarity with Muslim women, see what it's like for a day. People are saying that, if we are to have a Muslim registry, I'm going to register as Muslim too. Like, that's not going to go down or whatever. But I don't think that we should let it reach that point in the first place. Like, let's not even let a Muslim registry happen, right? Like,
fact.
I think it's really important for us right now to be really engaged, really active. Don't let things slide under your noses. I think that especially with an administration like this, like what they're counting on, like the way that they can continue perpetuating this type of hatred and these types of policies is by people like us to be cool with it and let it slide and not say anything, not talk back, not make any noise about it. But make a whole ton of noise. Like, let's not normalize this, because this is not normal. Like, this is for real a fascist government. Like, this should never, we shouldn't be talking about it like, oh, it's just like very, very
maybe
conservative. Like, this is even conservative Republicans are like, we don't want anything to do with that. Like, that doesn't represent us. Like, this is an outlier, right? Like, this does not represent anything true to like who we are or what we want to stand for. And I think that right now we're in a moment where we're going to define that line. Like, and it's down to people like us, the ones that are on the grounds, in the streets, like for us to hold down the line and be like, nah, we're going to stop right there.
You can't cross this.
You cannot cross that line, right? Like, this is not what we stand for. We're not cool with that. Like, we're not going to let that happen. And that can take on any form that you choose to. Like I said earlier, whether that's just like sharing an article on Facebook, whether that's correcting one of your friends, you know, like checking someone at your dinner table or whatever, or whether that means like going to DC and marching the streets, going out to your local protests, creating a protest, like in your neighborhood if one doesn't exist, you know, like be active, like do something about it. Like this is the moment that people are going to look back on, and they're literally going to look at this. Like I'm telling you, like without a doubt, they're going to look at this moment with all of this going on, and they're going to be looking at us and questioning what we did. So let's make it something that we're proud of, you know, like something that we're proud to tell our children later on.
It's also, I feel like in this day and age and in the society that we live in right now with social media and things happening so fast and like attention spans, it's really easy to feel like, oh, that already happened. You know what I mean? Like, that's happening. But, like, I'm on to this set of news now, like, this new set of news. Don't be dismissive of the things that are happening, because they are the stepping stones to where things will get. So if you allow yourself to forget about all of the little things that led up to this point, then that's where we lose ourselves, and that's where we lose the battle, because you can't forget. You can't allow yourself to forget or think that it's okay to move on to new news, because that's not the way this is. This isn't, you know, what somebody's wearing on a carpet. This is literally lives being jeopardized daily. Like, this is a reality that we all live in, that we don't think we live in, because they've done a really great job of painting this perfect little bubble for us. But it's a reality of the world that we're in right now. People are being harmed, people are being killed, people are being detained, people are being discriminated against, and all of that affects the soul. It all affects the way that you are able to navigate life, and that's important, even if it's not happening to you.
Yeah, that's so true. Like, I think that that's a really good marker, right? That's how you decide, right? Like, a person's life should never come down to a political spectrum of like liberal or conservative, or like where we land on a policy. Like, a person's life should never be on that line, should never be up for grabs like that. Whether that is denying trans kids the ability to go to the bathroom that they choose, whether that is talking about police reform and how, you know, black kids are literally getting shot up in the streets, whether that's talking about a Muslim ban or immigration reform, you know, like when it comes down to people's lives, that isn't something that's just simply a debate to have, you know, or like something to vote on. Yeah, like that should not be controversial. Like it should always be clear that we stand on the side of humanity and we stand on the right side of history.
Awesome. Well, I just wanted to thank both of you for being here and for talking about this very important topic, and for y'all too for sticking around in the cold.
Yeah,
and
thank you guys
and listening
for being
to this great
here.
conversation. Thank you.